Good morning, this is Chuck Hyde, Vista's Chair here in Northwest Arkansas, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Bruce and Blair Johanson of the Johanson Group. Guys, welcome. I hope you're doing well this morning. Thanks for making time for us.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Chuck.
Bruce and Blair have been friends for a good while. I know that I first really met you and worked with you about 15 years ago, because it was right when I started my career with Soderquist Leadership, and we had a client that we needed some expertise in your field. We made that referral, and you did such great work for that company. And that was sort of the start of our professional relationship. We've been connected through groups like Work Matters and other. You actually, guys, you serve on a board of one of my Vistage members, and just a lot of different connections inside of Northwest Arkansas. Have really appreciated the expertise you bring in the world of compensation strategies, talent strategies, and organizational strategy. And while we've done a ton of these with Vistage speakers, I'm always been impressed with how much great expertise we have right here in Northwest Arkansas. You guys came and spoke to our Vistage groups back in 18, I think it was. And so really just appreciate you giving your time today, and the work that you all do. I want to ask you both, we didn't get a chance to talk about this off camera, but how are you both? How are your families? How has COVID-19 affected you personally and in your business?
Well, Chuck, thanks for asking. The families, actually our families are doing well. Bruce and I are fortunate that we were able to work in private offices so that we can come to work and work actually in our offices. And I think one of the differences out in the hallway is less water cooler talk than there used to be. Because we're keeping our social distance. And then also our business has changed a little bit, quite a bit of Zoom meetings and go to meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just say echo Blair. Our families are doing well, and so is our staff, our team. And so we're thankful for that. And then the other thing that we've seen some of our clients who have postponed projects and or have actually said we're not going to do them because they're not certain financially, how they're going to fare with the COVID-19 virus. So we're kind of seeing some of that. We've had one that was put on hold and came back recently and said, okay, we're ready to start. So that's good. Also had some others who said, hey, it's too early to make a call on this, and so we've had some impact with it.
Yeah, and that's been consistent with most everyone I've talked to. And one of the things I love about why these interviews matter to me and the people that we bring forward is it's not only you have your expertise in your field, but you're also running a business. There's an empathy that you have feel for your own level of activity, your own people. What does return to work mean to you? All the things that like my Vistage members are thinking about right now. You all experience as well, and I think empathy is a powerful thing right now. So thanks for sharing that. So in this series, guys, we've covered a lot of ground in fairly broad topics and culture and leadership, things like that. I want to get into a much more detailed conversation, as we kind of talked offline, as it relates to people strategy. When we went from a talent war 60 plus days ago, what are we doing to attract talent to grow, right? Things were positive, and now we've gone to unemployment, who we're having to let go. Will those people come back when things come back? How do I do that? And just the entire workforce has been turned upside down. So I'd love maybe just to start with your perspective, at least, and experience on the 10,000 foot view of what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, Chuck, it's a good question. What we're seeing is some organizations have already closed, and they're not sure if they're going to be able to even open up. We've got some who've sent their employees home. They're laid off with now the desire to be able to bring them back a little bit at a time. And then we've seen lots of companies and corporations who have sent people home, and they're working at home. They're also finding out they're getting to be teachers of their kids if they have kids, and so they've got that responsibility. And so what's really been interesting is that all of a sudden you have all these people who were in offices, they've been sent home, and now they're trying to figure out, hey, how do I juggle all these things that I have. I've got work, I've got family, I've got responsibilities. And so it's been kind of interesting to kind of listen to some of the people talk about what's going on in their, in their home environment. I had a lady yesterday, she's a insurance claim adjuster, and she said, well, I'm finding I'm more productive at home. And what was interesting, she said, I have 5 kids. I'm working from home as a insurance claim person. So she's on the phone pretty much throughout the day. But I thought it was pretty interesting. I told her, I said, well, we're going to give you 2 stars for one being at home and doing what you're doing, plus having 5 kids. So
absolutely. Well, that's
deal.
interesting you bring that up, because one of the things that we've been talking about in Vistage Networks is the kind of the work from home dynamic is it's like the genie is out of the bottle, and how you're really going to get back. And maybe you don't want to, because I've got a member who was telling me a similar story, Bruce, where a key employee actually has, in a thing where you think she would perform it and get much more done at the office,
right.
killing it from home right now. And they've been talking about, I was like, what do you think that is? And it's like, well, I think it's this. And so like, they're thinking, no, we may just change the way in which we work, because of what we've learned, what we didn't see coming. And so when you think about that, and maybe more strategic, what's the strategic thought for business leaders as we don't just rush back to the office in the way we kind of did things, and versus learning and paying attention to what productivity looks like and effectiveness looks like?
Yeah, so Chuck, I think with this forced situation, if you will, we've had several studies over the years about what's happening in the workforce about remote work and the percentage of employees that are working remotely, either at the Starbucks or at home, depending on where they can carry out their work. And that percentage has grown quite a bit. In fact, some of the studies had about 30 to 40% of employees were working remotely. And based on some recent articles, it may be as high as 60% on the backside of folks deciding to come back to the workplace or to stay in a remote capacity. So we're going to see overall this experience is going to increase the amount of folks that are working remotely. From a strategy perspective, I think we need to make sure that we have people who are very conscientious about being able to accomplish their work remotely or at home, or a situation where they're not directly close to the team or the boss. And I think that's going to be one of the key attributes that we're going to look for, is people that are very conscientious, productive, self-motivated, and willing to get their work done, even if they have 5 kids at home distracting them. So I think that's one of the things we're going to look for is the ability to be independent and work in that environment.
Yeah, and I think, Chuck, you mentioned that companies really truly have to, this is a great opportunity to assess, what's critical as far as people being together, not together, what needs to get done. And so it's a chance to kind of reshape what they look like, both at the office, away from the office, team meetings, no meetings, that kind of thing.
Well, and I heard, to maybe as we segue to the next thing, that generalities and averages can be misleading, right? So it sounds like being really intentional about not making too many assumptions about the mom who's got 5 kids. Well, you can't do that. Well, maybe she can, right? But really being intentional about the structure, the processes, the aptitudes, and the drivers that allow people to be effective, which is really the bottom line.
Right.
So that project we did, years ago, you guys are experts in executive compensation and strategic compensation strategies for companies. Pretty early in my career, I had this appreciation for what total comp looks like, and things that went way beyond our take-home pay. When we were back in 2018, things were already changing, and you were talking to our members about that. But what are some things you're either seeing or you're expecting to see, and what kind of things should our business owners be thinking about with respect to as work changes and the value people place on various forms of compensation? And I'm going to use the word compensation pretty loosely.
Right.
To attract and retain talent. What are some of the things you're expecting out of this?
Yeah, so Chuck, I think on the compensation area, what we've seen in the past is the base compensation was pretty much the dominant recognition of compensation. And now, over time, it's called total rewards, because now you're looking at the total package, the total compensation piece, as well as the benefits that make the package for the employee. From a strategy perspective, we really encourage the clients to look at base compensation to be competitive, so that you're really competitive in the marketplace with your base compensation, and then use your variable pay and your bonus pay as a difference maker from the standpoint of making the difference to attract talent and retain talent, is where you're using your additional pay beyond base pay to do that. And then layered on top of that is deferred comp and profit sharing, and we're using that to motivate your top performers for them to take it to the next level, and for retention, so that you're using that to retain your top performers. So it's a combination beyond base all the way up through layers of additional compensation that drive performance and retention.
Yeah, and I'd say beyond what Blair mentioned, to be to look at the benefit side of things, to really look at the total benefit package too, along with the compensation, and to really individualize benefits based on generational needs and based on individual needs. Our technology is sophisticated enough that we can individualize benefit plans and still be fair and equitable. So I think Blair and I are seeing more companies looking at each group by age, by needs, and then looking at the overall package, both comp and benefits, and trying to create some individual packages, more or less giving each person, say, okay, here's your bucket of dollars for your position, and how you divvy that up. Here's all your opportunities to choose from, and then letting technology take care of that accounting feature of keeping track of all that.
See, that makes a ton of sense. It's almost like the next generation of what we mean by cafeteria, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And one of the things I picked up years ago when I was in an organizational role is benefits don't benefit everyone the same, right? So
Exactly.
you may have this package of general benefits, but not everybody benefits from those things in the same ways, or at all in different parts of it. So that makes a ton of sense. So I've been in conversations with business owners here recently where what they have been has served them well, but now they're poised, even with the coming out of this pandemic and all the implications it's brought, they're poised to kind of take it to the next level. And they're realizing that whether it's their people or their structures, the way it was working, and compensation along with that, to get the people that will help them take, like where the company may be outgrowing old ways of working and they need new talent and new ways of working to get to the next thing. But they don't know where to start when it comes to, well, I don't know how Blair, you mentioned the deferred comp and different, incentives that like put the carrot out there to really hit at that next level. How do, for someone who has heard of that, maybe read an article on it,
Right.
What kinds of things should they be thinking? And how do they increase their knowledge on those types of systems?
You bet. So I guess the first part of that process is to identify what they need. What is it that, from a talent perspective, what are they trying to drive forward from a talent perspective to drive those goals that they're trying to achieve, either both short-term or long-term? And then once that's identified, then what resources do we have in the organization to actually apply to it? So the organization positioned now to be able to take some of the earnings and redistribute those earnings to drive the higher levels of talent and the higher levels of performance. Organizations have to decide, when is it time to flip that switch and move to it. I think Bruce has a good example of Bruce was in an insurance company or somebody recently that you talked to about trying to determine the next layer, maybe insurance, maybe another company where they were trying to layer on some additional compensation.
Yeah, what they were trying to do is they said, we've got great talent, but we want to hold on to them. And so we want to create, we've had good compensation, but we want to retain, and we realize we need to incentivize them. And so we're helping them to set performance targets, metrics, and giving them, the ability to have a threshold to a maximum. So we close it in on the top end, but giving them somewhere between 10 to 40% of their base salary layered on top of their base compensation.
Okay. And so those real performance metrics then become some of those triggers, if you will, of what that compensation would actually then pay out.
You bet. Yeah, we had a bank client where we actually did performance incentives all the way from the chairman CEO down to the teller. So we had about 40 to 50 different individual incentive based on position. And they've been on that plan for about 3 years now, and they absolutely love it. So it's really driven performance to a higher level.
Right, and to kind of pick up what Bruce was saying there, I think that bonus compensation and driving that towards the specific objectives and goals is a kind of a step in the process of working your way towards deferred compensation and profit sharing. And that's where you're starting to pick up some individuals that want to drive at a higher level decision making, and that's where you bring on deferred comp and some of the profit sharing, and when it's time to share, if you will, the leadership and potentially some of the ownership of the organization.
Okay, Chuck, the key there is retention, and that is some of those key younger individuals is to lock them in. And so if you use some type of deferred comp with some type of vesting, a 5-10 year vesting, to lock keeps them in long enough so they don't get the itch to go somewhere else. Right. The table that they don't want to walk away from. So that's the key on some of these younger generational key employees is to create, as Blair said, that deferred comp to lock them in.
Well, so I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago that one of my members sent me, and it was a professor from NYU that was talking about that COVID, certain crises changed things, but he was arguing that this really accelerated things that were going to happen anyway. Yeah. And it feels like in this conversation, that's what, like, we were already talking about some of these things, like back in 18, for example, but it sounds like where we're headed, like this is going to accelerate the need for that even more. Is that fair from your point of view?
It's fair. And one of the things, here's a good example. We've got one client, they've laid off about 150 individuals because of partly because of their current business, but also as you mentioned, it kind of came rushing forward with the virus, with the pandemic. Yeah. But at the same time, they are taking some of their key employees and adding some additional salary or benefits, other things, to make sure that they lock them in, because they're going to need those key players as more of the older workforce retires and more of the younger workforce takes the ball and runs with it.
Okay. Well, guys, one of the things that I've learned in the series of interviews we've been doing is that it's a good catalyst. It's, to provoke thought, reflection, and an assessment of where we are and where we're headed. The downside is it doesn't give enough time to actually get into the nuts and bolts, which wouldn't be great in this environment anyway. But like for anybody that I want to know more, like what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or find out more about the work you guys do in this area and to ask a question?
Yeah, so Chuck, probably doing a little bit of research would be for them to visit our website, for the Johanson Group website, as well as our DB Squared software site, and then definitely to reach us through LinkedIn or by contacting us through our office.
Okay. Yeah. So the Johanson Group, y'all, people look them up. Again, it's been a blessing. You guys have been my go-to resource on this topic, again, since, for the last 15 years in multiple ways, and just appreciate the caliber of work you're doing, the tools that you guys are offering to your clients, because it is truly not only I would say maybe a niche expertise, but a strategic expertise that business owners need to be paying attention to. And so to have that right here in Northwest Arkansas is a great thing. So appreciate you guys, the way in which you work, the men and character that you are, and how involved you are in our community. So thank you for that. Wish you nothing but the best. And thank you for your time and your insight today.
Thanks,
Chuck.
Chuck.
We sure appreciate it.
All right.
Yep.
Talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.